Hey, fifth graders. I have a microphone, so that means hopefully you can hear me. And we are going to look at a little bit more at the Lieutenant Kije suite that we looked at last week. I enjoyed reading your insightful commentary on what you listened to. I'm going to use your initials because we're on the internet. SB thought it was bouncy and it reminded her of Tom and Jerry, had a Tom and Jerry vibe, which I thought was hilarious and true, especially with the flute and piccolo part. Another SB reminded me that we can also put our assignments in the text of the email. You don't have to send me a Word document. If it's easier just to send it as an email, that's fine too. And a couple of you actually even actually, I don't think any of the fifth graders did, but some of the fourth graders for their assignment, they just took a picture of it and texted it to me on my email, and that's fine too. Whatever works best for you guys. CC thought that the story could be about a conductor who is trying to get their band ready for a concert, and the band is not ready for the concert, and the conductor gets more and more angry as time goes on, which I thought was very funny. EM found it relaxing. SM thought that it sounded like maybe music to honor somebody that was very important, maybe funeral music, and parts of it definitely did. You're totally right. AN thought that it sounded like a mystery or a fairy tale and a marching band, and you're right. All of those things are in the true story. Well, I guess it's not a true story, but the actual story that Sergei Prokofiev was writing for when he wrote this suite. NO thought that the music changes through the song. It definitely does. There's a lot of changes, and parts of it are peaceful, and parts of it are not peaceful, and that is correct. RS thought that there were parts that were andante and also parts that were allegro. Thank you for using those, Italian tempo words. Way to go. And that it was sometimes graceful and sometimes mischievous. And when I tell you the true story of this suite, you will find that it is actually very mischievous. You are so right. BS thought that it sounded like a folktale or a movie, and she's right. It's a folktale, and it ended up being a movie. And DW thought that it sounded, and I thought this was very funny, kind of like Popeye, which I can definitely see that too. I can't wait to tell you what the real story is, but before I tell you what the real story is, I want you to make up your own symphonic story. So you can see here on the screen, hopefully you can see both of those things. This is Lieutenant Kije by Sergei Prokofiev. That's what you've been listening to. There we go. This is a picture drawn of the composer, Sergei Prokofiev, and it is drawn by Henry Matisse, who you may have learned about in art class, very famous artist. Prokofiev lived from April 27th, 1891, it's almost his birthday, I guess, coming up, and he died March 5th in 1953. 1953 might sound like it was a long time ago, but 1953 was only 9 years before my mom was born, so it's not that long ago. He was a Russian/Soviet composer. The S in Soviet should be capitalized. What are you going to do with me, you guys? What are you going to do? He was a pianist and conductor. He's most well known for writing Peter and the Wolf, and you have seen that. I'm sure, like all of you have seen that. Now, he didn't write the movie that we've seen. He wrote hi, thanks for joining us. He wrote the music. And actually, I always thought that he wrote the music to go along with a well-known folktale about a boy and a wolf, but it seems that after some research, he actually wrote the story as well, but he wanted it to have a folktale-like feel. He really liked the folktale idea, and he liked stories, and this Lieutenant Kije story is pretty cool. So let's take a quick look at what happens in the part of the story that we are going to write a symphonic story for. So I've got my phone here so we can hear it because I can't play it from my computer because that's life. Alright, it starts out at the 0-minute mark with a cornet solo. If you thought it was a trumpet solo, that's okay because the cornet and the trumpet are very, very similar. But I believe the cornet got the valves, which are these buttons, before the trumpet did, and so it was better for melodies at first. It has kind of a smoother sound, some people think. Here we have a side drum, or also it could be called a snare drum, but folk-tale-wise, probably a side drum is more likely. Now we have a flute and a piccolo kind of playing together. We're familiar with that flute and piccolo song from Peter, flute and piccolo sound from Peter and the Wolf. The bird, Sasha, is played by a flute, as you know, because you've just watched that other video, right? We've got some staccato sounding brass that just happened. I missed it there. Oh, there's some strings you can hear. And here we are at the minute 16, minute 17 mark. And we have the return of this theme with the flute and the piccolo. Here around 126. More strings at 130. It's kind of like an alternating between the strings and the brass ensemble, almost as if they're talking to each other, some sort of conversation. Some sort of big trumpet or cornet brass fanfare. Now this part that's coming up is interesting because if you listen closely, you'll hear a saxophone. Stop eating the colored pencils. Can't take her anymore. Over here. Thank you. You'll hear a saxophone, and saxophones are not frequently in symphonic music. You usually see an orchestra. There's no saxophone. And that is pretty much how it is for most orchestras all the way through to modern times. And the reason why we'll talk about maybe in a different video, because it's a kind of a complicated reason. You know, you're not helping things. Please leave. Sorry guys, she really wants to hang out. It's kind of a sad sounding in the sad little theme you can hear in the flute. Oh. I like that part there. It sounds very like it could be definitely used for a story. Even though I got my fancy microphone, this video is not going to be such a great quality because my cat got in here and tried to steal my smoothie. I didn't even know my cat liked smoothies. That's what you learn staying at home. There it is, the return of that little theme with the flute and the piccolo and little side or snare drum you can hear. But it's a little different this time. It has kind of chromatic sounding notes in the flute. Makes it sound a little bit more curious, and that's where our symphonic story will stop. So that was at the 340 mark. So now I want you to think for a minute of what you want your story to be about. I don't want to influence your story, so pause it if you need to, because now I'm going to tell you my symphonic story after I give you the assignment here. There we go. It says your assignment is to write a symphonic story for the first part of Prokofiev's Lieutenant Kije suite. And by the way, when I say Prokofiev, I don't say it the same way that other people say it. There's a good chance I'm saying that one wrong. I'm not Russian. What can I do? Use the music to help you describe the mood. Use the different instrument sounds to help you describe the characters, just like in Peter of the Wolf. When I first heard that, that's why I played the French horn, because I thought those 3 French horns playing the wolf sound was just so cool that I needed to play that. Use the timestamp to narrate the story properly. So you'll see when I show you my story in a little bit that first I give you a synopsis of the story, and then I put 0.00 cornet solo is, I don't know, grandpa waking up or something. Use those timestamps to help you narrate your story. You don't have to use the same timestamps that I do. Maybe I think something cool in my story happens at 1 minute and 3 seconds. Well, maybe in your story, nothing happens at that time. That's okay. Email me your story by April 1st. These don't have to be like final drafts or anything. This is just like a little project. Your story doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just interested in what your thoughts are. So now, I don't want to influence your story. Now I'm going to tell you my version of the story. Then you're going to write yours, and then next week I'll tell you the real version of the story. So if you don't want to see mine, pause now. Now is the time to pause. Okay, time's up. So here's my story. I put a heading on it. You don't really have to. And then I wrote my synopsis, and then I used my timestamps. So here we go. We're going to listen to that 4-minute almost beginning of the song again, and I will tell you my story, and we'll see. Hopefully I don't mess it up too much. But as you do know, my cat is in here, and she wants everything that's mine. Like a baby. Like a baby brother. Okay. Oh, I guess I should read you my synopsis first. In my version of Prokofiev's story, instead of a lieutenant, Kije is a young musk deer who becomes separated from his herd. I chose the musk deer because they are native to Russia, where Sergei Prokofiev is from. Also, I wanted to choose an unpopular animal, so I didn't feel like I was stealing any ideas that you guys might have, and I figured a deer with fangs, not really the first animal anyone's going to think of. So, without further ado, here's my story. A cornet solo is the sun rising in the great Siberian forest. It is cold, but it is a beautiful morning. The snare drum is the snow. Being warmed by the sun, and it's dropping from the branches onto the forest floor, waking up the animals. Ravens start to play around in the snow. Ravens are very intelligent and playful birds. They dive in and out of the snowbanks and flit around. One raven starts, and then more join in the fun. The forest begins to wake up and come alive. A small herd of musk deer get up and briskly shake the snow from their fur. Kije watches as a small raven and a large raven play around in the snow, like it's a bird bath, throwing it up over the wings and rolling around in it. The herd is awake and senses danger. Maybe a wolf. They start to scurry east, but Kije is not paying any attention. He's still playing around in the brush and watching the birds play. This is the birds playing. So Kije's herd is disappearing over the hill. And the sun is all the way up in the morning sky. It's a nice morning. I'm assuming this is the deer kind of running away with their little fangs. There, now all the deer have disappeared. That's Kije. He's lost. Sadly, he sniffs around. He hangs his head. You can hear the saxophone there. It's a tenor saxophone. That's why it's a low sound. You can also hear a bassoon. Kije's very sad. A raven begins to throw acorns at Kije's head. At first, he is annoyed and shakes them off. The raven points